We are back once again with the Autosportradio.com 2020 show. We are still housed at the Grant King Race Shops, located at 8155 Crawfordsville Road in Indianapolis. And as things are opening up, you need to make a trip down here. Now, you're not going to see much because everything here is going to change. The cars you've been seeing pictures of are going to be shifted. New ones will be brought in. So you want to come in and see. They got some great collections of stuff, letters written by Evel Knievel while he was in jail to Grant. So it's an interesting place. Lots of pictures and lots of cars. It is a working museum, and you will want to stop here. Today's show is presented by Honda and Honda HPD, the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, the NTT IndyCar Series, SVRA, and McGilvery's Pub and Speedway. And if you haven't been to McGilvery's yet, you've got to go. You won't believe what you will see. It has been completely renovated, remodeled, and it is spectacular and currently non-smoking. So if you're a fan of that, you need to show up there and support them for non-smoking. Founded in 1993 to spearhead Honda's entry into IndyCar racing, Honda Performance and Development has overseen successful racing efforts at all levels of the sport, from karting and quarter midgets to IndyCar and prototype sports cars. HPD offers race engines and competition products for professional, amateur, and entry-level racers. For more information about HPD and the company's racing product lines, please visit hpd.honda.com. And I want to make sure I thank the Speedway cable people for the help and the technical support, without which I would stumble and fall down. If you are having trouble with your computer, we have a new computer guy, Steve Fries at A+ Affordable Computer Doctor. He's a doctor because he makes house calls if necessary. So give him a call, tell him your problem. He can tell you how to solve it. Number is 317-328-0766. And your favorite doctor's appointment, a dental, obviously. Well, make it better for yourself. Go to the Indy Dental Group. They are spectacular, the highest rated dental practice in the state. Call Dr. Jack Miller or his wife, Dr. Liz Lewis. Make an appointment. Number is 317-846-6125. And if you want to know what these guys and gals find exciting about driving Indy cars, why not take a ride in a two-seater? The Indy Racing Experience two-seater will give you a thrill of a lifetime, I can tell you that for sure. You can go to IndyRacingExperience.com, find a date that'll work for you. And in the promo box, put DK1, you get a 50% discount, or you can call Shonda in the office. Number is 317-243-7171. A couple of birthdays to mention yesterday. The former Cable Commission president, Speedway Cable Commission, Brett Robinson, celebrated number 55, and he's the one who got Speedway Cable into and videoing autosport. And today the birthday would have been the 31st for Brian Clausen. And Thursday, Dennis Hume's birthday. He was a 67 Rookie of the Year, and he would be 56. Are you a vintage fan, or are you a Trans Am fan? Well, you can cover both by going to www.svra.com and subscribe to Speed Tour magazine. First-class publication, great photos, great stories, and if you go to an event, they'll tell you where to go to have dinner and things to see while you're there. So svra.com and subscribe to Speed Tour. And while you're there, check out the schedule, see where they're going to be, and if they're anywhere near you can get, go. You'll be glad you did. Is it time to renew your home, your car, or your commercial property insurance? Do what most of us have done. Call Mike Pardee at VP Insurance. They're located at 5004 West 16th Street in Speedway. Give them a call. Tell them what you got. 317-248-0070. That's Mike Pardee at VP Insurance. 317-248-0070. And if you want a vintage car, or you have one and need it restored, they got them here at the Grant King shops. In fact, they got a car here that pictures will show up on it that is for sale. If you're looking for one, give them a call. Number 317-820-3595. If you want to come to the shop, call ahead of time to make sure they're here, because they have other jobs they do and other companies they run. So give them a call, 317-820-3595. Now, my guest today is a gentleman I consider one of the better writers in all of motorsports. He's a co-writer with Patrick Stephan of Trackside Online, as well as he covers the Trackside Online ladder program. So welcome, please, Mr. Steve Wittich. And Steve, thanks for joining us.
Hey, good morning, Don. I think it's morning. Yeah, it's still morning. How are you?
Yeah, it is. Yeah. It's still morning, yes.
Yes.
The world has gone upside down, and with it has taken racing, motorsports.
Yes, unfortunately, yes.
Yes, it has. And the first race of the year was no spectators at Texas Motor Speedway, and a lot of the media was not allowed there either. Were you there, or were you not able to go?
We were not able to go. Yeah, it was pretty limited. I think there was only one person not based in the Dallas area that ended up going. So yeah, believe it or not, it's the first time Trackside Online has missed a race since 1996. But we totally understand that too, right? It's not, you're not going to allow too many people. It's understandable.
Well, the thing that I've always appreciated about you and what you and Patrick do is the teams and the officials, series officials, trust you, because when you ask a question and they give you an answer, that's what you say. You don't dream up what you think they said. You say what they did say, and therefore you're able to get a lot of information that a lot of others really don't get. What have you learned about, let's go to the ladder system. They canceled the Indy Lights. What do you hear is on the rise for them?
Yeah, that was unfortunate, especially since there's a little bit of momentum coming into this year where, we're going to have double-digit cars again, it's been a tough hoe to get it brought back up, but they're going to have double-digit cars. But just with the pandemic, there were probably 3 or 4 drivers that were not going to turn up, whether it's money reasons or not being able to get here. So they decided, running with 6 cars just isn't worth it. And it's just part of it's a schedule issue with everything tightened down now. Not having, 2 1-hour races, 2 20-minute practices, or qualifying and a half-hour practice, that opens up a schedule for other stuff, which is a good thing. But it's going to be back. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about that. They're working hard to continue. They brought the budget down to well under $1 million now. And I think, talking to a few people, I think Roger's going to be more involved in pushing the IndyCar teams, maybe the leader circle teams, to somehow become involved in lights.
I think that's a smart idea. And as you recall, when Indy Lights first started, that's what they were looking for, is to have IndyCar teams have a team or two. And Roger's heading to that again.
Yeah, and I don't know, if it'll be like it was in the past where the team owns it, where the IndyCar team actually owns the team, or whether they, just support an Indy Lights team. It could be different. There's different ways to do it. But yeah, it's been done in the past. I think it was, I want to say 07, 08, when they gave an IndyCar team more test days if they were involved somehow with an Indy Lights team. So whether it's monetary, whether they get more leader circle money, it's going to be a benefit to the Indy Lights teams. And you look at a team like Andretti right now, who, they've obviously been the most successful Indy Lights team over the years. And you look back at a team like Sam Schmidt, who had a very successful Indy Lights team and IndyCar team. There's a big benefit to having the IndyCar team if you're a lights driver with sponsors who want to entertain. Because, going to, let's say a Rob McGinnis, who has, a bunch of New York City sponsors come into a race, well, they can now go to Andretti hospitality, right? You can have lunch with Mario Andretti, see Michael, see all the drivers. That's a huge benefit. So even if there's some sort of tie-up there where a lights team, is tied up with an IndyCar team and can even just use hospitality, it's a huge benefit for those to entertain, because we all know entertaining is a big part of racing right now.
Oh, absolutely. It's networking,
right.
A whole ball of wax. So that's what all makes it tick. But
right, it gives those Indy Lights sponsors a chance to meet all the IndyCar sponsors, and maybe they can do business there. So yeah, no, it's a definite step in the right direction.
And the thing about it is the ladder system has worked. I mean, if you look at the starting field for an IndyCar race, there's probably 15, 20 of the guys have come through the ladder system, through lights and into IndyCar, which is exactly what it's meant to do.
It is. Yeah. You look at even like Joseph Newgarden, the last 3 years he's won the championship, was 2011 lights champion, right? So yeah, it definitely works. Scott Dixon was a lights champion. Elio, Tony Kanaan, those guys all came out of lights, and it's definitely important to have it, because you can get guys coming out of Europe, but the fans don't know them. This gives a chance for a fan to sort of get to know someone before they become an IndyCar driver, which is fantastic for the driver because it allows them to start building their brand. You had someone like James Hinchcliffe, who everybody knew who he was when he got to IndyCar because, he was successful in lights and could build his brand. And that's what these drivers are given the opportunity to do.
James Hinchcliffe could have built a brand on anything. He just starts talking and he just knocks you on the ground. He's just great personality.
He's going to have a great career in broadcasting one day.
Oh, I think he will. I think he's going to be very good upcoming. And I keep trying to get him and he says yes. And I try to get a date button down and it doesn't work. It hasn't worked yet. We'll get him. We'll keep talking.
You will.
What have you heard about what IndyCar is doing to try and accommodate, being the way things are today? It's tough to, entice sponsors if there's not 30, 40, 50,000 people milling around a racetrack.
Right. Yeah, no, it's definitely, racing sponsorship these days is sort of twofold. It's, the consumer side that we see, on the side of the cars, that kind of sponsorship, but a lot of it's behind the scenes stuff where a brand does some entertaining and they bring people in and they show, what their brand does, at the racetrack. And, I think we need both back. I think before we even get fans back, it probably needs to be where the partners can come in and entertain before we even get fans back. But I think we're going to fans at Road America. So we're not going to have a month to wait now. So that's too bad. But both sides of it are important, right? There's certain brands that get into racing because they want the consumer to see what they're doing. And there's others that get in because, well, they can entertain, at the track, someone like, a new example you'll see this year with Roger's team and with the Speedway with Snap-on Tools. So they're going to bring in, they at each race when they can, they'll bring in either their, Snap-on Tool franchisees or a big mechanic shop or that kind of thing to entertain. And that's important to them. The branding's important, but so is being able to bring people in and get to know them. When you're in sales, face-to-face is everything. And just getting to spend a day with someone doing something fun it creates a memory for that person and they're going to remember your brand.
How did you get into motorsports writing? Was that your goal when you started, or did you just say, gee, I like writing, racing, I'll get to, how did you get into it?
No, definitely not my goal. I originally had a career in sales. I sold to banks and credit unions, did both the front-facing mortgage side of stuff, and then I also did back-end processing stuff, the debit cards and that kind of stuff. When 2008 hit, we had a big, the banks weren't doing anything, so I took a step back and looked at what I could do, and I had an e-commerce business for a number of years where basically I bought businesses that went out of business and resold their equipment and stuff. But then I just on the side started to do a little bit of, I went to my first IndyCar race in 1978, and before I'd even started writing about it, I'd been to probably well over 100 races. So I think it was 2011, 2012, when Racer Magazine asked me to do some fan blogs, and that got me started. And then 2 years later, I hooked up with the guys with Trackside Online and been doing it ever since.
It amazes me. It's some of the people that I read that write some of the stories I'm aware of. I mean, some of the topics I'm aware of, and I read some of this, I'm thinking, what did I miss? Somewhere I missed something because that's not what I heard or was told. Whereas Trackside says what they tell you. You don't dream up. You ask the question, you put down what they tell you. Have you had trouble getting the confidence of the teams and team owners and drivers to be able to write the stories?
It does. It takes a little bit of time to, get everybody to trust you. And even now there's people that won't share, and I have no problem with that, right? Like it's not, it's probably not in their best interest to share, but sometimes, it is. So you kind of have to be able to parse out what someone wants you to say and what part of the story is important to tell everybody. And what, you always want to be honest, right? You just, something I'm never going to do is make something. I can't even imagine making a story up or If I don't know something's, there's times I've been wrong. We're all going to have those times. But if in my mind, if I'm not 90% confident something's going to happen, I'm not going to write about it, because to me, it makes no sense, because it starts too many other conversations. And quite honestly, it's a small business, and I don't want to ruin somebody's future deal. It's that simple, right? Like, I know how hard it is to make, a commercial deal. I'm not going to ruin that for somebody just to get a few clicks. That's just not the way I would do things.
Yeah. Besides that, once you start making up stuff, all of a sudden the people you want to talk to lose confidence in you, and they won't talk to you. What direction do you see IndyCar heading? Do you think, with Roger now taking over stewardship of the Speedway and owning the series and owning IMS Productions, do you think there'll be dramatic changes under his guidance?
I don't know if dramatic would be the word. There'll be some significant changes, I'm sure. He'll take his time, and I'm sure it'll be different now. 6 months ago, I would have said, give him a year to look at everything, and then he'll start, putting his processes in place. But I think it'll be a little bit longer now, because he's going to have to change everything and change the way things are done. But the basics of the sport are going to stay the same. He's just going to make it a better experience for everybody, more behind the scenes probably than anything. You look at his race team, right? Like, preparation is equals success. And that's going to be the difference. You're not going to see, what he does behind the scenes to make it better, but it'll get done, because that's just the way he's always done things, right? It's, and there'll be things you see, because their cars always shine a little bit more than everybody else's, right? It's that kind of stuff where you don't see anybody standing around in a Penske garage. They're always doing something. And I think that's the way it'll be, more with IndyCar and the series and the Speedway, is that they're always going to be moving. They're always going to be doing something to improve the business. They won't sit back and go, oh, we had a great year, let's not change anything. He'll figure out a way to make it move forward the next year, and even if it's a little change, he'll make it.
Yeah, one of the things that's impressed me, and I've heard from his members of his staff, he has said, and I've said this before, that he doesn't look at this as a problem; it's an opportunity. And his biggest thing, and that I hear about him constantly, is he wants it to be a better fan experience. Because if it's a good fan experience, they come back.
Right.
And that's the whole secret to this.
Yeah, it's easier. It's easier to keep a customer than get a new one, right? That's always the way it's been in business. So he understands that as well as anyone. You look at the longtime sponsors he's had, right? Yeah. Like, how long has Pennzoil been with that team, right? And he's got some advantages owning all the car dealerships, but if you treat a sponsor right, same as you treat a fan right, they're going to come back, right? It's that simple.
What is going to be new, if anything, for Trackside?
Not a whole lot right now. We're talking, Patrick and I have taken this time, and we talked a little bit about, adding a few new features. I'm trying to do a little bit more feature writing, which you'll start to see in the next couple of weeks. I've got a couple of things coming out where, I want to start talking more about behind the scenes stuff with the teams and things like that. But we've talked about podcasts. We've done that in the past, and I think it's valuable, but I like the way you do it, where it's not such a long, it's not 2 hours long. It's just enough to, listen to or watch, when you've got 15 or 20 minutes extra. And we've talked about maybe doing that, on a Friday, Saturday, Sunday, right after the track activity ends, just put 15 minutes together where Patrick and I talk about what happened on the day. I don't know if that's something some people would listen to, but if you're driving home from the track, or if you've got a few minutes after dinner, you can listen to it.
I have found, thanks to my IT guru, Ted, when everything shut down, I thought, well, now what is Autosport going to do? Now what do we do?
Yeah.
And he said, and I've said this before, he said, well, it was suggested to do Zoom. And I was thinking of the little kid that did the car commercial at the end. He goes, Zoom, Zoom. And I thought, what has that got to do with anything?
Yeah.
Well, I found out that they knew what they're doing, and here we are, and it's worked very well. And people are watching and keeping up, and that's what we're trying to do, is keep, because the advantage is sometimes you're not available on a Tuesday, or a lot of guys aren't, but now some of the officials that normally can't, they can do it from their office or their home, wherever they are at the present time. One thing I have been told is that the scheduling is not in stone. That there have been meetings, because there's somebody I'm after, and he said we have meetings sometimes until 2:30 in the morning,
Yeah.
looking to cover everything that could possibly happen and how do we change it? How do we make it work? There's a lot involved, and I got to think that makes it a little tough for you, because you schedule to go to a race and all of a sudden they have to shift it a little bit. Now you go, oops.
Yeah, it does. It definitely makes things challenging. I really haven't booked, and Patrick and I do things kind of differently. I do a little bit of what he does. He has flights booked for the entire rest of the schedule right now, but he flies Southwest. So do I. So, you can change those flights, no cost. And that's good. I enjoy, I will book stuff. I've got a couple flights later in the year already booked, and we'll see what happens. But yeah, it does make the travel side of things a little bit difficult. You don't know when you're going to go and what you have to have ready. And, I've got, the good thing is this year over the course of the winter, I spent a lot of time sort of getting some of my preview stuff ready beforehand. Well, I didn't expect Texas to be the first one I used, but I had it, I had it ready probably in February. So I've got stuff, sort of, a quarter of the way done for the rest of the year, but we'll see what stuff I have to use and what I won't. I did a lot of CODA stuff early, and I'm never going to use that. So it's just a matter of, being prepared, like Roger says, right? Preparation, right? You just want to be a little bit ahead of the game.
Right. Well, you said early on that you thought that fans would in fact be allowed at Road America.
That's the plan right now, I think. Yeah, they've been selling tickets to fans still and camping areas. And, with that big track, it's possible to be able to distance. And they had SCCA runoffs yesterday, like this weekend. And I talked to a couple people that were there, and they said they had a lot of signs up about social distancing and, marks on the ground when you're at a concession stand to stay distanced. And I think it'll work. Will you be able to have an open paddock like you do there normally? Probably not. We'll see. But the teams won't. That's tough to do, to have paddock open to the fans at that point yet. But you never know. It'll be interesting to see how that event goes, because it's by far the easiest one to keep people apart.
Well,
and I think you'll still have a chunk of the fans that, they want to go, but they still won't go. And I completely understand that. I question it sometimes myself, right? I don't want to get sick.
Do you think that the August 23rd will be the running of the 500, or do you think it'll end up moving to October?
I think we'll know more in the next 3 or 4 weeks on, what cases do and what, how things go in Indiana. It looks like things are trending down. And I think as long as they continue to trend down, I think, will it, and again, you don't know, will it be a full crowd? It probably wouldn't be, even if you allowed, right, everybody that bought a ticket, because there's going to be people that just aren't going to go. They won't take the risk. So it's just a matter of how many people, are actually allowed and what they'll do to keep them distant. And, I'm going to guess there'll be a lot of hand washing stuff around. And, in the middle of August, I'm not sure if you can make everyone wear a mask outside. I don't think you'll be able to, but we'll see what they try and do. And the outside stuff it seems to be safer than inside. If this was, would I go to a Butler basketball game at Hinkle right now? Heck no. Would I go to a football game at Butler? Yeah, I'd consider it, because you're outside, you can move away from people. It's definitely different with racing where you are outside.
Well, I've been told that the 2-week span between Laguna Seca and St. Petersburg is in there. In the event they have to run in October, Roger wants to run practice, qualifying, and then the next full week with their various,
Oh yeah, that Harvest Grand Prix date is if they run it in August, they're still going to run the road course then. But if they don't run in August, no, that Harvest Grand Prix date is when they'll run the 500.
Right.
There's no ifs, ands, or buts about that. You won't get them to admit it out loud, but
I think you're right.
I've heard from enough people that that's the plan. So, and
I just read this weekend that ticket sales have kind of had tailed off, but now they're starting to pick up again.
That's good.
So that the ticket sales aren't where they were going great until this whole thing started, and
right.
They tailed off to almost zip. Now it's picking back up again because people were looking to move out. Um, it what you guys do and the way you cover, I think is phenomenal. And doing, just a thing as you do on the ladder program, getting these kids a little attention. One of the things I like to do is get some of the lights drivers in so that people get to know who the
Definitely.
heck they are. I'm not happy with the television coverage they get,
I
personally.
know they aren't either, and they'll continue to work on it. It's tough, right? It's really tough, when where it's a little different than it used to be, and it used to be where it was always, lights was live on ESPN2 or whatever. And it's just, there's so many more sporting events now where, we've got soccer from overseas and right. I think, if we were to run lights now, it'd probably do well because there's nothing else going on, but no, it's tough. They definitely need more TV.
Well, I subscribe to NBC Gold,
Yep.
and
So do I.
I've complained to Terry Lingner about this. I said, it's great, but when they come to run the USF 2000 and the Indy 2000, and sometimes even the lights, but not so much the lights, they turn the cameras, aim them somewhere, and go to have lunch.
Yeah.
So you hear Rob Howerton in the booth hollering about, look at that pass, and you don't see it because the camera they got on is looking at a dead straightaway.
Yeah, it's tough. It's more the lower level, and it's usually the practice sessions, not, and then it's tough because they use the same camera guys throughout the whole day,
Right.
and usually the Road to Indy race, it's the last thing happening on a certain day. Well, the camera guys will stay, but Dan Anderson's going to have to pay them time and a half, and that gets, it's just hard. It's tough to pay for it. So.
And I think Dan has really done quite a good job of putting together the program. I know in the early 2000s, for the Freedom 100, they'd have 24, 25 cars. And I know Roger said his goal, he would retire when they had a 33-car field start the Freedom 100. Of course, he
That'd
never
be
quite
fantastic.
got to that.
No, definitely not.
But I think, and it also interests me that the attention that the ladder program gets around the world, the number of European drivers and Asian drivers that come here because there's nowhere else to go to learn how to drive these kind of cars.
No, it's a credit to what Dan's built and the fact that it's it's a pure professional series now. There's no club level teams competing anymore, and that means it's great for it doesn't matter where you are as a team or a driver. All the teams are competitive, right? And that never used to be the case at that level. You'd have some teams that would just be, they'd be off every weekend because they didn't have the money or they didn't have the right people in place. But it's definitely all the way down through USF 2000. It's professional racing. There's no club level racing, that's attractive to drivers. Sometimes I'll have European drivers contact me or South American drivers contact me to ask me, about teams and things like that. And I said, listen, it's so different than racing in Europe because a lot of times over there, they don't get a fair shot or a fair shake. You might be the third driver on a 3-car team and you're not going to get the same stuff as the top driver. Here, it's the same. I mean, if you're the 4th car on, Pabst Racing's USF 2000 team, you're going to the exact same effort and car and preparation as the guy who's the quickest for that team. And that's a huge benefit to racing, in the US. It's interesting how in Europe there's still that caste system or there's that, class system where there's guys who just aren't considered to be as good. And then they never get the chance to show it. They might improve, but they're always the third guy on the team and they don't get quite the same equipment or the same attention. So that's the one thing I get Dan a lot of credit for is for building a super professional ladder series where the teams are very professional.
Well, the thing that bothers me that they're not running this year, I mean, last year they had 8 or 9 or 10 cars.
Yeah.
And the thing I always found interesting watching them on television, they were all together. You didn't have to wait, 60, 70 seconds for the fourth place guy to come because they were all in the pack. It was good, close, tight racing.
Yeah, the teams are all good. The drivers are all good. It's just a matter of getting a few more cars out there. And that would help. The more it's chicken and an egg thing, the more cars you have, the cheaper it becomes because then Anderson and Dallara can lower and Cooper and everyone else can lower the prices, right? If you had 20 cars running, it's supply and demand. If you had 20 cars running, everything would be cheaper. But you've got to get you can't run for free. Dan can't lose money or Dallara can't lose money so it's a tough balance. And I mean, the budgets are $200,000 cheaper than they were 2 years ago, which is huge. It's a huge decline. It's just, it's tough with the economy, and, the American dollar is strong. So you've got, versus the euro or versus a lot of the South American, especially the South American right now, economies, the American dollar is so strong that it makes it tougher to get kids to come, because, it's 20% more than it was 2 years ago. And that, that makes a big difference because if you're born in Brazil, you're paying in Brazilian dollars, right? So they might have lowered the cost, but the Brazilian dollar's gone down too. So it's the same, it's tough. It's really tough.
What have you heard from any drivers about the finally they got a full race test of the aero screen? Now I heard nobody. I heard, prior to the race, they said the heat, these guys, oh my God, it's going to be terrible. I didn't see that. I didn't hear any of that. Did you hear it?
The heat was an issue a little bit for a few guys. Like, you could even see when Dixon got out of the car, he looked like he worked hard, but and he's in good shape. But yeah, that was like, I listened to a bunch of the guys on the radio, and I talked to a few guys, and they after 15 laps, they didn't even know what was there. And I think most guys maybe only used 2 tear-offs during the race. They didn't even do a tear-off each time. It was kept that clean. So, and they'll work on the cooling side. And it was hot down there too, right? So they'll work on the cooling side of it and get it figured out. But, I talked to drivers, said he was glad it wasn't full distance. Another 50 laps would have been pretty tough. It was just hot, right? So, but they'll get it figured out. And it wasn't, I don't know if we're going to have a hotter race this year. So that's not a bad thing. If you're done with the first one and it was the hottest, everyone will be used to it.
And the thing that disturbed me is that stuff they put down in the turns for NASCAR. It really, to me, kind of took away from the race, because as well as I do, there could have been 2 and 3 wide going through the corners. They could have passed coming out of the corner instead of having to get a run and get them going in. I think it took a little bit away from the race.
Yeah, I think. Oh, yeah, for sure did. And apparently it had been scrubbed off, and it was, I guess molten. It was mainly gone, but it kept the track was darker there where it was, and it was 15 degrees higher temperature, and that caused the tires to react differently to that part of the pavement. So it's a fine line, right? Like, if it had been 75 degrees, we might not have had an issue.
Right.
Or if it had been cloudy, we might not have had an issue. But because it was sunny and 100, we had an issue. But yeah, no, it definitely caused, to be a 1-lane racetrack. Which, to be honest with you, to start the season at that track and not have any big incidents or issues isn't the worst thing in my mind, right? Like, there's, you could end some driver seasons just from budget wise from that kind of track.
Well, I think Mr. Sato might say, well, it wasn't all that good, and I think Firestone had been, I think I heard on the telecast that Firestone said they lost about 15% of grip in the corners.
Yeah, I think that's about right.
And
no, it's tough. And they tried to scrub it off, but it just, I'm sure it just, whatever, there was remnants of it, or changed the way the track took heat. And it was.
Well, I'm sure it did. It's black, so it did suck up some heat.
Yeah.
If somebody, and I highly recommend TracksideOnline.com to everybody, if you want to find out what's going on. It's like people say to me, your program runs all year. I said, sure, there's something going on all the time.
Exactly.
And I tell them, you want to know what's going on, you want to know what the different teams are saying, their PR, you don't get it, they do. Subscribe. So how do you subscribe to Trackside?
Just go on TracksideOnline.com, and you can click on the subscribe. It's up in the top left-hand corner, and $22 for the year, and you'll get, I don't know how, I'd have to look. I think we sent out 6,000 different updates last year. So you'll get a lot of emails. And that's one thing we talked earlier about what we're changing. We're batted about different ways to do it. If you don't get emails, you'll get a text that says, hey, there's a story up on this. And if you want to click on it, you can just click on it. Something we've talked about too, whereas it doesn't come in the inbox, but a lot of people still like getting it in their inbox. They can read it when they want. You can sign up to get all the team emails and all the track emails, or you can just get the news that we send out. You can customize exactly what you get. And it's, we still think we haven't upped the price in a while, and I don't think we're going to. So it's $22 for the year, and you can, you'll get all the information. And, once we get traveling, you get travel tips and where we get to eat and the good places to eat and all that kind of stuff too.
You two guys, that's kind of funny. You come into town, and one of the first things you or Patrick, you say, by the way, the best place to go to eat is here.
Yes.
So you get the scoop on what to see and where to go. But for $22, if you're a race fan and you want to know what's going on, as Steve said, you can subscribe to get the team PR because they get it all, and they'll give it to you. And I think it's really I like it. I hope you stay with the inbox because I love it when it comes in.
Oh, we will. Oh, no, we'll never get rid of that.
So if you don't get Roger Penske's PR information, subscribe. You will get it. They'll forward it to you. It's really worthwhile. And for a lousy $22, good grief, find out what's going on. What have you heard recently? I haven't seen anything recently. What have you heard about Robert Wickens? Is he anywhere where he could see that he might fit in the seat of a car again?
I'm talking to him next week for an article. I don't know what's happening now. I know he was scheduled to get into a go-kart this summer, but that was back up in Canada, and right now he can't get up there. So, but no, I know he was scheduled to do some karting later in the year. So that's a great step forward, right? Hand controls, obviously, but to get back in, that's probably the best way for him to get back into race shape and get sharp, his mind sharp, right? He's been probably more than anything, that mind needs to get back into that race shape. But yeah, I know he was talking about getting into a go-kart, so we'll see what happens. I know everything's kind of slowed down. I'm sure you'll ask Sam to get into. I know Sam got one of the new mid-engine Corvettes, and I know it's over in Ohio right now getting fitted so he can drive it. So my guess is Robert will ask to drive that first.
What was your impression of the sim racing that IndyCar did? I looked at it and I thought, this is really something. And I've mentioned this a number of times.
Interesting. I think it's a good way to keep the fans engaged and more importantly, probably the sponsors engaged, right? It's, it was on TV and the ratings were decent. And, if you can tell your sponsor you got X number more people watching and seeing your brand, then that's a good thing. And allow the drivers to see, to show who was good or who, took it seriously and not. And maybe my one thing is I think they made the drivers do it. I don't know if that's something I'd do in the next go round. If you want to do it, great, do it. And most teams will end up doing it because it's good for the sponsor. But different people took it different seriousness levels, and that was interesting to see. And I don't blame some of the guys, right? It's definitely not the same as racing, but I was entertained. That's all that matters, right? It's entertainment.
Right.
So.
Well, I invited my wife to watch it. She heard me talking about it. Said, call me when it starts. So I called her in, and she's looking at it. She said, this is real. I said, no, it's not. Yes, it is. No, it's not. I said, I'll tell you how you know it's not real. Watch when they do a pit stop. If the two cars come in, the guy in front slows down, the other one will go right through it.
Right through it, yeah.
Oh, no, you're right. That's right. But it was, and I've said this a number of times, what impressed me, really caught my attention, was the car's going around the corner. You see the shadow in the cockpit.
Yeah.
The in-car camera. How in the world?
No, the way they, the technology that goes into rendering, it's impressive. Oh. I know it takes them a long time to laser scan it. When they go to a track, they do it with laser scanning, and I know it takes them a long time to do it. So, but yeah, they've done a good job at making it very realistic.
You're not kidding.
I'd like to see them do more. Did you watch the wives race and the girlfriend?
Yes.
I'd like to see some of that. I'd even like to see the IndyCar guys. Okay, let's get into, into a NASCAR truck and race at Bristol or IRP. I'd like to see our IndyCar guys do different stuff. I think that, to me, that's entertaining. Watching them race an IndyCar, that's fine, but that's what they do all the time, and they're really good at it. Let's get them out of their comfort zone a little bit and have them, race Robbie Gordon's super stadium trucks at Toronto or something like that. I think that'd be great fun.
Well, they got Dale Jr. to come in, and he did reasonably well, actually.
He did really well,
having been in an IndyCar before.
Yeah.
It was kind of interesting. Well, I tell you what, the season is not around the corner by any means, but the next event we'll have to watch on NBC Gold.
Yep.
Because it will be at the Speedway July the 4th with NASCAR. You think NASCAR and IndyCar should run on the same weekends?
I'd like to see it a few times a year, definitely. I would. I think it's good to cross-pollinate fan bases where, IndyCar fans get to see NASCAR and NASCAR fans get to see IndyCar, I watch both. So, and I know some people don't, but I'd love to see, do I want to see it all the time? No, definitely not. But 2 or 3 times a year would be fun. And I like when we run with the trucks. I think that's a good,
Yeah,
I enjoy that.
yeah. Yeah, I think I've thought about that too. Put them in the trucks or put them in a stock car. Take the IndyCar guys out and go run Talladega.
That, yeah.
See how stuff like that, or take the NASCAR guys and go. Well, they run Iowa anyway. I'm kind
Right.
of disappointed that Richmond was taken off the schedule. That place
Yeah, I was too. I
spectacular.
was kind of really looking forward to that one. It'll be back, I'm sure.
Oh,
No, I was really looking forward to that.
that's a great facility, and as I've
It is.
mentioned before, I used to spot with Mark, and we were sitting, Mark Janes, and we'd sit in
Yep.
the back stretch. And the last race we had, I looked around and I said, Mark, if this continues, because his fans were coming around through turn 2 and through turn 3 coming toward us,
Yeah.
another race or two, we're going to have to find somewhere else to sit. Well,
Yeah.
next year they cut it off.
Sorry.
But I'm glad it's a phenomenal track. And the NASCAR fans that came and said, wow, these cars are quick. Yeah, they are.
It is. Yeah, and it's a good marketplace, right? It's a marketplace we're not in. And, I know, a lot of people don't like to think about the business side of things, but I always try and think about that. And right, we're not in that mid-Atlantic area, somewhere where we haven't raced in a while. And I think it's important to keep racing in different parts of the country.
Well, the fans were building, and I hope it will continue starting next year and things go well. Well, Steve, I appreciate you taking the time to sit and chat with us. We look forward to, or at least I do, and I hope they will subscribe. TracksideOnline.com, top left corner, subscribe, $22 a year. And like you said, you can get as many as 6,000 updates on what's going on in the world of IndyCar and the ladder system, so it's well worth it. Check it out. Thanks for your time, Steve. Appreciate it. Look forward to reading your stuff, and I'll see you somewhere along the way.
Thanks for having me on, Don.
My guest has been the co-writer for the Trackside Online publication, Steve Wittich. We will have another couple people upcoming this week. I don't know exactly when they will be on the internet, but there'll be at least one more coming up, so we hope you'll stay with us. Again, we want to thank Steve and Bill and Stephanie Throckmorton for the use of the Grand King shops, and bear in mind, everything that you've seen the last 2 months, a lot of it's going to change. New cars, new displays, something to see. Until next time, Don Kay saying thanks for watching. Till then, good night.